Hello everybody, it's Josie here. I'm going to be doing a kind of a part one of my March wrap up. I've read quite a few books this month, so I thought I'd split up the wrap up so I can actually talk a bit more about the books, because I always find that when I do these wrap ups, I kind of like whiz through, or I start with the first one and I talk and I talk and I talk, and then I look at the time and think, God, this video is going to be too long. So then I just kind of whiz through the other ones, and I don't want to do that. So I really kind of want to talk a bit more about the books and my thoughts on them. So here goes. So the first book that I want to talk about is this one over here, The Girl with All the Gifts. This book has been on my list of must read for, I think, the first part of 2019. It was sitting around in 2018. I kept meaning to get to it. I eventually did. And oh my goodness, I could be kicking myself for not getting to this any sooner, because it was amazing. So this book is about, I don't want to give away too much of the storyline. I feel like the less you know about this book, the better. But it is in the kind of science fiction, post-apocalyptic horror genre. And it's about this girl and her journey in this post-apocalyptic world and what's happened. And I'm being really vague because I want to be deliberately vague, because if you don't know, I think it makes it even better. I had kind of an idea of where this was going, but even though I knew, the first few lines of this book, the first chapter, it is so affecting. It is so gut-wrenching. It is, you're reading about this young girl and what's being done to her, and I really struggled with it, but this book is so powerful because I think the main themes here are about, humanity. Again, what do we class as human? How do we treat each other? How do we see each other? What makes us the same? What makes us different? And then also with this, and I'm really on a post-apocalyptic just terrain at the moment that I'm riding. I'm even wearing my army colors today, but it's so interesting and what can happen, and where the world is going and all of these things. It's a fantastic book. It's long, but I flew through this in like a couple of days. I loved it. There's a second, was actually a prequel called, I think, The Boy on the Bridge, that I am so getting fairly soon so I can read the follow-up, but I would highly recommend this book. This is a 5-star read. It's one of my favorite books of the year actually so far. So yeah, Girl with All the Gifts, definitely read that one. The next one that, again, I was really excited to get to, and I believe was on my list of top 20 books to read in 2019, or the first half of 2019, is this one here, Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I was lucky enough to get this one in a charity shop, secondhand. Most people on BookTube will probably know about Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. It is a huge favorite in the BookTube community. And it was one of my favorite books of last year. It's gorgeous. And I was really high hopes for this one. I think this is her first book. I really enjoyed it. I will say I still enjoyed Radio Silence more. I gave Radio Silence 5 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. And I'll start with the negative and then we'll go into the positive. What kind of stopped me from giving it 5 stars, and what I loved so much about Radio Silence, was that Radio Silence really wasn't about romance. It was about this incredible friendship between these two characters. And if you see the front of this book, it says, this is not a love story. I beg to differ a little bit. However, saying that, I still enjoyed it. The main character, Tori. She is pretty hilarious, and unfortunately I really identify a lot with her. I was a lot like Tori in high school. I still am in a way. I'm actually, despite being on camera right now, quite introverted. I like my own company. I can be quite blunt sometimes. And she is just the way there's certain lines that she comes out with that made me laugh. It also is really, trigger warnings for self-harm, suicide, eating disorder, also mental health issues. So it is incredibly sad. It's incredibly gut-wrenching at points in the book, particularly Tori and her brother Charlie. So, if you have any of those issues that affects you when you're reading, tread lightly. I enjoyed reading a character that wasn't immediately likable. She reminds me of, if anybody's read the book, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. If you've read that book, the main character in this one reminds me of her a little bit, just a kind of a younger version, because the character's 17. This is a YA novel, but I still really enjoyed it. I think it is, again, it talks a little bit to the nature of friendship, which I love. What we do to each other, and how it's really about human interactions, and I really enjoyed this. So I wasn't let down by this book, and I want to read more Alice Oseman. Born This Way is on my list for the next Alice Oseman book to read. Then I read this one over here, Once and Future. So this is by Amy Rose Capetta and Corey McCarthy. So Amy Rose Capetta, I read The Brilliant Death last year, and I loved that book because of the kind of the gender fluidity and that real discussion around gender, what gender means, and the characters that were really gender fluid. I love that. So I was really looking forward to a new Amy Rose Capetta book. And this one, this is such a weird concept and it shouldn't work, but I tell you, it kind of worked. So this is a retelling of the King Arthur story. However, it is set in the future, so it is set in space, primarily. And King Arthur, this time, this is supposed to be the 42nd incarnation of King Arthur. So you've got Merlin, and you've got King Arthur, and you've got Guinevere, and you've got all of the kind of the main characters in the, if you're familiar with the King Arthur myth. So the 42nd incarnation of King Arthur, and this time, King Arthur is queen. She's a girl. And what I love about the story and what I was expecting and what I wasn't let down by is wonderful queer relationships in here. Girl loves girl, boy loves boy. Wonderful sort of some fluidity kind of characters, non-binary identifying character. Loved all that. I have to say the first couple of chapters I was a bit like, I don't know, this is weird, this is sort of a King Arthur myth mixed in with spaceships, and it's a bit odd, but the more I got into the book, I really enjoyed it. It was different, it's not something, again, sci-fi has not traditionally been something that I've read that much of, but I'm really into it at the moment. So give me post-apocalyptic, give me sci-fi, I'm quite happy at the moment, particularly queer. So queer sci-fi, queer post-apocalyptic, and I'm just loving it. So yeah, this story is fun. It's a romp. There's action, there's adventure, there's all these crazy characters. There's the kind of the underlying myth of King Arthur and the characters that you'll know. And this is the first installment. So it does end well, but you want it, you know, you do. I got to the end and I wanted to read more, so I'll definitely be picking up the next one. Like I said, it really shouldn't work, but it does. It's fun. I really enjoyed this. So again, it was a 4-star read for me. The next one I want to talk about is Black Wave. This is by Michelle T. I never know if I should call it T or Tia. I need to look that up. But I love Michelle. I read her book Valencia, which was incredible. And this one did not disappoint. So Michelle writes about queer lesbian culture in the 1990s. Her books are mainly set in San Francisco. This one is in San Francisco and LA. And it's basically about the loves and lives of this fictional character called Michelle, but it's kind of based on her real life. And I really love the way she writes. She has a great style of writing. I find this really nostalgic. It takes me right back to the 90s. It can be quite graphic at times. It's definitely an adult book. And this one has a little bit of a twist in it in the end because the end of the world is approaching as well. So it has a tiny bit of a post-apocalyptic, or no, pre-apocalyptic in this case, twist, which is quite funny in the end. I say funny, I mean, she has a very dark sense of humor. But it is mainly about, you know, again, the relationships and how we kind of mold and create and craft these relationships with people. And I love this. This is like 4.5, 5 stars for me because I just love anything she writes. Then the next one I've got here is The Punk Factor. So this is by Rebecca Denton. And I think I remember saying this in one of my haul videos possibly. This was a cover buy for me because I loved the cover. Just this kind of rock chick girl and the stars and the fact that it was called The Punk Factor because I love anything in sort of the right girl genre, sort of again the 90s my era, and punk and all of that. I'm really interested in all of that. So this is about a girl, now I'm trying to remember what her name is, Frankie. She basically starts a punk rock band with 2 of her friends, so a female punk rock band, because she gets dumped by her musician boyfriend, and she kind of almost wants to get him back, she wants to get him back, and she wants to sort of appear cool and wonderful. She starts this punk rock band. And then, you know, that these girls really get into it, and it's about, you know, the friendship between the girls, which I really loved. It has loads of musical references, which I love. There's a playlist in the front of this, and there's some really cool, so you can see track lists, actually each, let me see, can you see that? So each chapter is a name of a song, and, you know, it starts with the Rebel Girl Bikini Kill, you know, You Had Me from that. And I love that dynamic, but Frankie as a character annoyed the bejesus out of me. The fact that for most of the novel she's still running after this ex-boyfriend, and that was kind of her motivation for playing music. I get it, but I think it went on a little too long. Also, she's incredibly selfish, incredibly self-centered. Now, don't get me wrong, I like unlikable characters, so part of me really liked her, but part of me was quite annoyed by her. And just the fact that she does spend a lot of time, you know, doing this, all of this for ulterior reasons. And she doesn't lie a lot as well. So I didn't like her as much as I thought I was gonna like her, let's put it that way. I like the supporting characters. I thought we saw too little really of the supporting characters. There's one lovely girl romance in here, but you see glimpses of it. She's the bass player in the band, and you don't see too much. So I actually would have wanted to focus a bit more on the other characters. But it's good, but it wasn't as great as I thought it was gonna be. So I would say 3, maybe 3.5 stars for this one. And then the last one is this one over here. I'm going to do a separate video, so I'll do this one fairly quickly and then do a separate video. This is The Last 8. So this is coming out beginning of April, I believe. This is, again, post-apocalyptic. Something's happened. Most of humanity has died out. The Last 8 refers to the last 8 teenagers on Earth. And, oh, this was fun. I enjoyed it. Again, some really cool, I think, ace representation and queer characters in here. Really strong female characters. Most of the cast is female. Some action, spaceships, adventure, post-apocalyptic, fun. Loved it. Like I said, we'll do a bit more in-depth separate video on this one, but I gave this a 4 star as well. So those are my books for the first wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will speak to you guys all very soon. Bye-bye.